I would like to start with talking about the challenges that we're trying to address with MDS Cubes. That means talking about the technical background of how SAC gets its data from the database and what this means for the database, or what this can mean for the database. I'm going to show how MDS Cubes fit in there. And I can share a couple of experiences from real customer scenarios. And I'm going to try to demonstrate live how you can create an MDS Cube, how you can eventually use it in an SAC dashboard, before I conclude the session with a brief overview of the current state of development. Right, let's start. SAC offers a wide range of options, of tools to build dashboards, and customers usually invest a lot of effort there to build powerful and complex dashboards, SAC stories, designed to provide, well, a whole lot of business critical information to end users, to end user groups. And these dashboards, these stories are, well, they can be built in development, they can be built as part of, well, with a self-service approach. They are tested by a few key users, then released to production for general usage. And as more and more end users start using them, they start to complain about performance problems. They start to complain about high wait times. And so to better understand what is the cause of this, what might be the problem here, let's have a look at how these dashboards actually get their data from the connected HANA Cloud instance. So an SAC dashboard widget, chart, a table, sends a multidimensional query, an MDS request, to the HANA database, to the connected HANA Cloud instance. The primary processing engine there is the MDS engine, which parses the request and decides how source data has to be read from the underlying HANA model, from the calculation views. So one or more HANA model requests are executed. They are executed by the underlying execution engines, calculation engine, hex engine, other legacy engines, which parallelize the execution further, using more HANA threads. And that is usually where most of the resource consumption, CPU time, memory consumption, takes place. The actual degree of parallelization depends on what has been requested as dimensions, as measures, how the calculation view model looks like, database configuration. The point is a single MDS request can already consume a significant amount of resources. And, well, usually we don't have just a single widget in such a dashboard, in such a story, but a whole lot of them. And an action by an end user, a navigation step, usually refreshes most, if not all, of the widgets. So we have multiple MDS requests being executed on the database, which consumes even more resources. They're all executed in parallel. They all consume CPU and memory. And to make it worse, it's usually not just a single user working with the dashboard at a certain time. It's usually a group, many end users that navigate, that trigger a whole lot more MDS requests, and they all end up in the database. And it's not unusual to see like 50, 60, 70 or more MDS requests being active on the database at the same time. And yeah, I mean, they would all like to be processed. They would all like to consume resources. The database might not have enough resources to serve all the MDS requests optimally. So the MDS requests, the HANA threads, they compete for the resources, and as they compete for the resources, their runtimes increase. And the end users have to wait. I mean, this is not a situation that I made up. This is what we already see. This is what we see at custom customer scenarios and customer HANA Cloud instances. Monthly end reporting, quarterly end reporting, in general, situations with a higher than usual reporting activity. Think of training situations where once the instructor has finished, everybody starts clicking at once on the dashboard. Maybe it's just that the HANA Cloud instance has become undersized for the evolving business requirements. I mean, keep in mind, we're talking about HANA Cloud here. You can provision HANA Cloud instances in various sizes, and I think it's perfectly reasonable not to not start the HANA Cloud journey with the largest available instance. So how does the MDS Cube, how do MDS Cubes fit in there? Well, MDS Cubes, one MDS Cube, materializes calculation view. Stores the data as dimensions, as facts, as hierarchies, just as the MDS engine needs it. There are computational capabilities on top of the materialized data. The general idea is to materialize what can be materialized and calculate, for example, expressions during reporting time on top of that materialized data. Little spoiler, little disclaimer, we are not fully there yet. So there is still more details on that later in the state of development slide, when I'm going to talk about what is possible and what we are still planning to implement. Thing is, MDS requests that access or run on MDS cubes, they consume significantly less resources. I mean, they don't have to process the potentially expensive HANA model during reporting time. And of course, that means better runtimes for the MDS requests, sure. But that also means that the instance or the database is less likely to run into resource shortage situations. So that's the theory. How does this look like in a real life scenario? And one of the first customers who adopted MDS Cubes gave us the chance to measure the impact of MDS Cubes in a real customer scenario. So essentially we executed a short load test in their productive instance using their real HANA model, the real productive data. We captured the workload that was generated by real end user navigations on dashboard side, on SAC side. Essentially, we captured the MDS requests and we replayed them. And by scaling up this workload during replay, we could simulate an increasing amount of end users working in the same time range. And the upper chart is the average runtime of such a simulated end user navigation sequence. Started at around 11 seconds. And as we increased the number of simulated users, well, the runtimes went up to 20 seconds, 30 seconds, 40 seconds, until, well, yeah, we reached runtimes that were basically unacceptable for the end users. But yeah, I mean, that's when resources became short. When those MDS requests competed for resources, we see a similar pattern for the average CPU load and the average memory consumption that the lower charts. And I mean, in this case, the available CPU power was the bottleneck. So we repeated the load test. We executed the MDS requests not on calculation views, but on MDS cubes. And the blue line, you can see that, I mean, the runtimes were already better to start with. But more importantly, they remained stable. So I mean, as more and more simulated users joined the party, the MDS requests eventually also overlapped the executions, but because of their low resource demand, the system never reached a point where resources became short. So you see the CPU load, lower left corner, fluctuating a little bit, but it did not went up to critical levels. So I mean, for us, this showed that I like to say that with MDS cubes we increased the capacity of the instance. But let me put it this way: by using MDS cubes, we significantly increased the amount of concurrent users that the instance could serve. So MDS cubes can be an alternative to instance upsizing, or at least they can be a complementary option. So again, small disclaimer, MDS cubes are built for calculation views, as I'm going to show in a minute. Calculation views are powerful modeling tools with an insane amount of features, and MDS cubes don't support all of the features or all feature combinations. So you probably won't be able to create MDS cubes for each and every calculation view or each and every calculation scenario. But using MDS cubes in a few scenarios can already reduce the overall resource demand. It can free resources that can then be used for other applications. Right, at the time, pretty fast. So what I would like to demonstrate now is how you can create an MDS cube, how you can create an MDS cube for calculation view, how you can monitor it, see it on the database, how you can load it, how you can materialize data, and eventually how you use it in a dashboard. All right, let's see if that really works. Let's start in Business Application Studio. Yeah, that's much enough, I guess. As said, MDS cubes are created for calculation views, so they can be found from a modeling perspective, from a design time perspective. They can be found in the calculation view editor. They are a bit hidden in the view properties. So there's a dedicated tab for it called MDS Cubes. You see I already created a cube called Backup Cube. Let's create an additional one and give it the name Full Cube. You select which dimensions and measures you would like to add to the MDS cube. Let's this rather simple and straightforward. Let's add everything here. I mean, called it full cube for a reason. Add all the measures. Save the calculation view. What? Okay, deployment was successful. That's already a relief for me. So now we did something. We defined and deployed an MDS cube. What's the next step? Next step is on SQL side. Unfortunately, it's a bit larger. The only way to only official available way to interact to manage MDS cubes is currently with a stored procedure named manage MDS cube. That is also documented officially. Database administration guide. There's a dedicated chapter administration of MDS cube, and that's API for managing MDS cubes, the subchapter. And this is where this procedure is documented and described. It takes JSON input and provides JSON output. That makes it pretty flexible, but also not exactly user-friendly, in my opinion. So it takes, as I said, it takes JSON input, and you provide commands in this JSON input. So basically, the commands are instructions what you would like to do. Let's start simple. There's the list command, with which you can query with which you can list the available MDS cubes in the system. You can restrict it to schemas. You can also restrict it to source objects like the calculation view. So this would be the command to show me which MDS cubes exist for a particular calculation view. And as I execute it, I get JSON output or JSON response. And we find the backup cube here that is already existing, and we find the full cube that I just created and deployed. You can see that the actual name of the MDS cube is concatenated. It gets the name of the calculation view, then /MDS cube / and then the name that you give the MDS cube on the editor side. Those cubes, or let's just look at a full cube. It's currently in state initial, which means it exists as metadata, but no data has been loaded yet. Accordingly, size on disk is 0, size in memory is 0. There's no created at timestamp. That is a bit unexpected. That is not how it should be. I just found out a couple of days ago. It's been addressed to the developers. Well, yeah, that's live. But we can also, here I use the list command in the, let's call it the source variant. So basically give me all MDS cubes which have a particular calculation view as source. I can also use the list command in the target variant. So this would be list of MDS cubes that were created in this particular schema. I think that's a bit more. I just wanted to show you that you can get a created at timestamp. It's strangely just for this one variant. Right, so this is unfortunately right now the only way to see the MDS cubes in the system. Right, we wanted to use them in the SAC dashboard. So in an SAC dashboard, so we have to materialize the data first. The corresponding command is the reload command. Give it the name of the MDS cube as a parameter. Execute it. That will take, I think, 20, 25 seconds. What it does now is, what the database does now is it, well, yeah, queries the calculation view, reads data from it, and stores this data on disk. The data is read. I think the technical term here is chunks. So the data is not read at once. That would be fatal for larger data volumes. So basically, the reload command tries to derive a chunking, a partitioning column, and then reads the calculation. Okay, seems to be successful. Response is rather unspectacular. It just tells us, well, it was okay. But let's use the list command again. Here, and see that the state now changed to ready. We have a refresh at timestamp. Data has been loaded. We see that it has a size on disk. That's the materialized data. It does not have a size on memory yet, simply because the parts of the MDS Cube that are required for reporting are then pulled into memory on first access. Right. Created an MDS Cube. We looked at it using the list command. We materialized the data. Use it on the SAC side somehow. That a small story. Might recognize it from the slides. It's designed to refresh for a couple of seconds. That was the first start. If I refresh it again, yeah, takes again a couple of seconds. And try to filter. Yeah, I mean, that you see it. There are always wait times involved. This is not really fun to work with such a low responding dashboard. Yeah, but I mean, we just created an MDS Cube for the underlying calculation view. Let's use it. And using it means we have to exchange the data source and the SSC model. Right now it points to the calculation view. And let's change it. Let's repoint it to the MDS Cube. That's the name of the calculation view. And yeah, it's my MDS Cube. Selecting it, confirming it, saving the model. Opening the story again. Now, the first access to the MDS Cube, I mean, you see it takes a couple of seconds too. And then SAC, of course, does its optimizing thing. But this first rather slow response time was because the MDS Cube data that was just on disk has now been pulled into memory. That means the next navigations should be faster. They are. I mean, it's not like instant, but better usable than before. Can run the list command again, and we should see that size in memory is now larger than 0, and you see that not every piece of data has been pulled into memory simply because I have not requested everything yet. So it does this, pretty much on demand. It's bytes. So it's not much data. Well, let me give you. Yeah. So I'm just going to summarize very, very shortly. But if you want to discuss this later in more detail, so the question was about workload classes in combination with MDS cubes. The short answer is the usual workload management mechanisms apply. So you can still restrict the usage using MDS cubes with workload classes. Right. Looking at the time, and show a few extra things here. Now, I already mentioned that MDS cubes do not support each and every available calculation view feature combination. So how does it look like if I wanted to build an MDS cube for a calculation view that has one of those unsupported features? That was this one here. I created a variable with the expression as default value. That's one of the features so far. I mean, right now looks as usual. We have the tab MDS cubes, but I'm not allowed to define MDS cubes. Gives me a rough description of what might be the reason. In this case, it's an input parameter with expression as default value. I think if you already created MDS cubes and wanted to add a feature that would be incompatible with MDS cubes, I think the editor is clever enough to prevent you from creating, or the editor should be intelligent enough to prevent you from creating such a combination MDS cubes and invalid features. But I cannot guarantee that the editor is 100% sure in all cases. So it should be, yes, but maybe there's an exotic combination that we haven't thought of that. But if you encounter such a situation, let me know, let us know. That's an opportunity to improve the UI, the tooling on this side. Right. With the slide, I mean, that was the short demo, how you can use MDS cubes. Right, current state of development. So MDS cubes as a feature have been released end of 2023. The MDS cubes, the cube has been, the feature has been intentionally released early. The idea is still to drive the further development and prioritize the further development based on customer feedback, based on real customer requirements. And we collaborated with customers in co-innovation and early adopter care programs. And so far we are quite successful. We extended the MDS Cube feature, what it supports, what it can do, and what it can do continuously. Of course, it supports shared dimensions with so star join models with the most common point types in the star join. We implemented support for analytic privileges, which is quite an important feature for a lot of customers. We extended the support for hierarchies. So now we can support multi-parent hierarchies. We offer currency conversion at loading time and at reporting time. You can choose this. With the next QRC release of HANA, we are planning to support unit conversion and counters, but there is a lot more to do. We are planning to support calculation parameters. On database side, it is already supported, but without proper tooling UI support, this is a nightmare to access. So to really release this support, we need extensions on UI and tooling side. We are planning, we're working hard on extending the support for calculated and restricted measures. The intention here is to, let me start another way. Not all data can or should be materialized. There can be expressions, calculations that have to be calculated one time, and that is the that is part of these computational capabilities on top of the materialized data. As I said, we're working hard on that. It would be really nice to have some kind of fallback, like calculation view fallback to MDS Cube or MDS Cube fallback to calculation view, so that you don't have to exchange the data source on SAC side. That you just keep the dashboard as it is, and that MDS Cubes are used automatically if they are available. You've seen the manage MDS Cube procedure. That is technically it's fully functional. It works. It's efficient, but not really user friendly. It would be nice to have some kind of management UI, something that doesn't require you to procedure on an SQL console using cryptic complex JSON imports. So that's in a nutshell what we currently support and what we are planning to support. And yeah, any customer feedback, any real end user feedback can only help us to improve the MDS Cube feature, the MDS Cube function in a way that can really it is really relevant for. I think that's it. Basically, if you're interested, if you would like to try it out, MDS Cubes are documented in the administration guide and the modeling guide. There's a learning journey which shows, which guides you to create MDS Cubes. And if you have feedback, if you have questions, reach out to me, and can be the contact from HANA development side. Right.
Okay, thank you so much.
Okay.
So we have a couple of minutes left for questions from the audience right now. I'm just going to start with this guy who was the first one.
Yes. When we talk about reload of the MDS cubes, I didn't notice any that we could do any time frame elements like a criteria, because some of the things that I'm looking at in order to reload simply won't be reloaded within a day. So are there any way in which we can say, let's take only the last year or something like that when we do the MDS reload? Do it in the API or?
No, that's currently not possible.
Okay.
Could be a future extension. So no, that's not possible. It's always the full calculation view, but there are incremental update, incremental reload capabilities. So if you want to update the MDS Cube on a daily basis, just with the latest slice of data, there is an API available for that.
Okay. One more, so please. Another one that's more in relation to, now you mentioned SAC, a lot of the customer base that I'm looking at use DataSphere in relation to SAC. Analytical models and this here, are there any plans of making those two play together at the moment? Some
plans probably. So MDS Cubes within DataSphere. I'm not aware that this is currently possible. but technically, I mean, it also uses MDS requests.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So,
the answer this way, the potential is there, but it is, yeah, I mean, I can't give you any more specific.
Implemented, but the goal is, of course, to offer a possibility, right, for all analytical models, right, to materialize in that way. So for SAC, we are building that also now. For example, if you are familiar with the simulation capability that came out last year, which is called Compass, and that typically has a lot of executions, right? You want to do a lot of simulation steps where you have heavy computation. So we thought, okay, we start here to kind of implicitly embed that into the offering, right? Because if you do simulations, that can mean heavy workload in addition to your analytical workload. And so here the idea is to include that into SAC. And for DataSphere, of course, we will also go that route, but it's as of today not yet there. And a small thing I wanted to add is basically we just finalized the first step of the HANA Central integration. So you have kind of at least some of the possibilities to see the models and so on now in HANA Central.
Okay, thank you so much. Who's next?
Right. So apart from SAC, is there a roadmap to support custom UI analytical apps through like CAP application? Because we have some UI5 reports connected to heavy calculation views.
Well, the answer is no. Find that MDS Cubes can really only be used. Yes, and accessible by.
Okay, more questions over there? Yeah, just give me a second.
No SQL support.
There is no API for data.
Well, MDS engine is the API or the way to access the data in a broader sense. But no, there is no manage MDS Cube like procedure which you can use. No, there are no plans to do this.
Okay, just give me a second for the online audience.
How to have a periodic refresh of the MDS Cube?
Sorry, can you...
How to have a periodic refresh of the MDS Cube?
Well, I mentioned that instead of doing a full rematerialization of all the data, you can do incremental loads. So if you set the MDS Cube up this way, basically you define a delta column, a column that can be used to store some kind of delta marker, and then the next incremental refresh then take everything that is greater than this data marker times them, for example. But yeah, so this is behind the incremental refresh feature that, yeah. Does that answer the question?
Yeah, but can you also define cron jobs on the database that runs the reload command in certain intervals?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
I mean, the manage MDS Cube store procedure, you can, I mean, you probably have to wrap it in some kind of other procedure or functionality, and then schedule this functionality either with cron jobs or as other customers do it, they have their own scheduling tools, and as long as these scheduling tools are able to execute SQL and are able to call procedures, sure. That's how you could do it, how I would recommend to do it.
Maybe one last question. Who wants to go?
You call this a cube. What is the underlying data structure? Is it a flat table or is it a star schema or something like that?
More, well, let me answer it this way. The data is stored as separate dimensions, facts, hierarchies. So it is from, I think, the term cube. I would describe the term cube in this context as a way to as a general multidimensional structure that is used by the MDS engine. We find the term cube there in a lot of different places. Think of MDS Cube cache. for example. Yeah, the MDS cubes probably fit into that. Technically, data is stored in files, but I was told it's files that are organized as dimensions, hierarchies, etc.
Okay, but the tables are not visible.
No. Actually, there are no tables, no classic database objects. We can see the metadata of the MDS cube. That is what we can see and what we can query with the managed MDS cube procedure. But there is no way to really access the data like you could access the data.
Okay, so thank you very much again. I've asked Bastian to be at the expert corner, which is on this floor, just around the corner. In case you want to engage in more detailed discussion, he will be there just for the next 30 minutes or so. So feel free to pick his brain for additional questions. Thanks again, and let's move over.